Hello, everybody, and welcome to, Aurorum Thronekeeper. I know that I'm very excited at the start of this campaign. I don't know what order you're going to be seeing these videos in. So whether this is the first video, the last video, where we make ourselves a William sandwich, I'm excited to invite WillNGraham to officially be on the first show on this channel. So, hi, Will. How are you?
Hi. I'm very good and excited. How are you, Scott?
I mean, I'm awesome. I know that we've only played, let's see, D&D that we've played together, just quickly to kind of go over it. You did, I think, 2 episodes of Eberron at the very end of that series before it went kaput. Yep. We played in Los Angeles together, which was fucking awesome. Okay, super cool. And were you a part of a Star Wars thing with me before, or no?
Yeah, Star Wars One Shot.
That's so.
Empire,
yeah.
I was playing a smuggler scoundrel. Yeah.
I think it was like a rough 6 hours or something like that, right?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 6-party campaign for 6. Yeah, it was for 6 party. It was cool, awesome.
It was a good time.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to officially have you as a party member over here. I've played D&D with you before. You're a lot of fun, but let's not waste anybody's time and kind of jump into the game. So, sorry, this music is just loud for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's why. I had it a little bit higher than I wanted it to. All right, so if that was a little loud at first, we're good now. So, awesome. So, your character, who we're going to be meeting in a second, happens to be a career military man for the Malta military. Now, what year he joined the military and all that stuff. These are details that we're going to learn kind of as the game goes on. These are details that are juicy and we get to have unfold in the campaign. But what's important to know is that as he walks in, he happens to be a part of the Malta military. Now, I want to give one little bit of information about that military. The Malta military, very much unlike the Paradel, has instead of having one branch with many ranks, there are actually many branches with just a few ranks. You happen to be part of the Venator, which Venator, right? Venator. Spelling is my worst thing, and I had to make sure that my overlay was correct. Professional streamer. Shut up, Neil. They happen to have many branches, and you happen to be part of the Venator one. The way that the branches work is the lowest rank that you could possibly be, somebody who is just recruited, who recruits are people considered people who are either in training or have not done a noteworthy task yet. So one important mission, just one mission, one battle, so on and so forth. After they come out of that successfully, then they finally leave the rank of apprentice, which is like a recruit. It's apprentice rank. And then become full-fledged soldiers. Soldiers have 3 ranks to them: Hedge, Magi, and Master. And then after that, the next 2 ranks are officer ranks, which are Magister and Savant. So those are going to be realistically your 6 total ranks of Apprentice, Hedge, Magi, Master, Magister, and Savant. Above that is really just going to be the Sorcerer nobilities, Sorcerer Bloodline nobilities that are going to be kind of giving rank order and blah, 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 blah. But either that aside, you have to be part of the Venator group. Venator is actually the group of Malta soldiers that are specifically trained in handling, magical problems. More often than not, you actually are dealing with more like magical beasts, because that's just what is something you're going to bump into more often. But also specifically trained in fighting mages themselves. That is actually where your forte is. You happen to be of the Magi rank for them. You are no young man. You are somebody that's been in the military for so many years, have cut your teeth time and time again, and have proven yourself. You definitely maintain the Magi rank walking in. So, Will, your character is going about his daily routine. You see, in Malta, it kind of breaks down into a few different regions of the country. There's the central area where the capital happens to be. There's the area to the east, which is with the ice wall that's been there for about a decade's time, holding back the push forward of the Paradel soldiers. There's the armies to the south, which more or less just kind of like on the which more or less just try to be aids, if not jump into battles to aid the nation to the south, Yovance, trying to hold back Paradel from taking that nation, because if they do, then they have an open door to your land. There's the soldiers to the west, whose job is more or less to jeer and wave fists at the Eustace, which is the gnomes that have caused lots of problems. I mean, no, they haven't. They're totally nice. And Ascaria, and the fact that they have a bit of an embargo on your nation. And then there's the cushy job. There's the job to the soldiers of the North, because unfortunately, whereas you might think the cushy job is to the south, sorry, the central one where the capital is, that's not entirely true. Unfortunately, in the past year or so, there have been terrorist activities happening in the capital city. So whereas there's not often enough to, it's not like it's every day, I should say. And it's not like tons of lives have been taken, but it's put everybody on edge every moment of every day. From the moment you wake up and even while you're sleeping, you're kind of on edge there. The cushy job to the north is because, well, Galdaria are kind of allies of Malta. Usually anybody that's along those boundaries there, really what they're doing is they're kind of looking to keep safety in the realm from the beasts that happen to live therein. And unfortunately, that happens to be where it was that you have been stationed for the past few years. As I said beforehand, you cut your teeth. And, well, the officer that was superior of yours, their idea of giving you a reward for a task done well so many years ago was to give you a cushy job. You've already tried you tested your steel against so many opponents and did so much for the nation. They didn't want you to feel like, well, let's just keep grinding you down to your nothing. You've kind of earned relaxation. And it was nice of them to have that opinion. But how does Oscar feel out of these past few years in the cushy job to the north?
He worries about complacency at all times. He is constantly struggling with the notion of whether or not he is actually wasting his time here. This feels like a waste of his talents, and he is more motivated than this. This is fine, but not where he wants to be, and he's eager to make a change at this point. Few years, he'll do his duty, but it's come to the point now where he's ready to make some moves to make a change, definitely.
With Oscar, but again, he's of a modest position in the military. He happens to have the rank of Magi. Magi is, as again, it's a modest position, something that generally would be respected by lesser soldiers, so on and so forth, but certainly not somebody that can throw their weight around. However, he happens to be a bit of a unique soldier. The Venator branch of the military happens to be kind of what you would think of as a special ops branch. Like, there's a difference between being, say, a master sergeant of, a random army, group or whatever, and being a master sergeant of, like, say, the Green Berets, right? There's just like a different understanding of one soldier versus the next. One has far more intense training, has higher expectations, so on and so forth. Not to discredit or demerit the significance or the hard work or whatnot of the other branches, right? It's just that you deal with something that they don't. Whereas they might come across a mage, whereas they might bump into a magical beast, you go out of your way to actively hunt them and put yourself in harm's way between them and everybody else that might be standing behind you. These are the soldiers that have to be trained not just in the art of defending themselves and well, but also attacking hard, taking their opponents down as quick as possible. So, your time spent in the north, do you see your character as being a bit of a loner? Or do you see, like, his time up there, he would have been spent relaxing with some of the other soldiers that were banished to the realm, as I imagine a few of you joke about?
Yeah, I mean, I think within the military, he's probably quite social, but in terms of outside of that, he would certainly appear like an outsider. He doesn't have the social skills to deal with people outside of the military, really. He is definitely someone who is more likely to get along with people who have seen combat, and that is just because you don't have to really talk about it. It's just there is that understanding, and that is really the base for that. Whereas with the general people, he may encounter them, but he has nothing to say to them.
A detail I thought I may have told you beforehand, but I may not have. I may have said it to somebody else and thought it was you. In Malta, actually, military service of 2 years is mandatory for all adult citizens. However, even though it's mandatory 2 year service, that's actually mandatory non-combative service, doing support roles. You actually have to opt into being on combat front lines and whatnot. And because of this approach to handling the military, it actually builds a very strong sense of nationalism and national pride amongst the people. And many of the persons during their tour as non-combatants choose to sign on to the combatant side and do what they can to save their nation. But just so you are aware, so even those civilians that you're talking about, there is a different mentality between somebody who just did their tour and somebody who is like,
that's very much what I mean as well. Is that it is he'll get along with the people who signed up for the front lines. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. It's the combat hardened nature of the people, whereas like he doesn't have any issues with the people who did support roles. He just doesn't have that inherent connection. Yeah. There's a certain brotherhood, and he just doesn't have that with those people, and it's nothing against them. He doesn't dislike them. In fact, he'll protect them with everything he's got, but he's not going to go out of his way to go and have a beer with them.
Nope. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. So your time spent in the North is not spent lonely, which is wonderful, because it was like a good almost 3 years it's been since you've been stuck up there, which is miserable. And you've seen people's come and go, passing through this assignment themselves. Sometimes they get sent out of this assignment as a punishment. Sometimes they get sent out of this assignment as a reward. And the whole time, you're just kind of like waiting for your opportunity. When, in fact, an opportunity does arise, you do have your commanding officer. Because the North is considered relatively simplistic, there are not a lot of savants that happen to be in this area. People of that degree of training and command and whatnot tend to be in the more important regions. There's a good number of magisters that watch over this, with one kind of aged savants that kind of like, I don't want to say lazily looks over, but definitely is better here than in the other places where he could be stationed. So the particular magister that happens to be that you tend to report to is Magister Kayvon, last name, of course. So Magister Kayvon, and they actually call you over to their to speak with them, kind of like commands, report to command sort of a thing. When you go and speak with them, again, Malta has, because of the past so many years, a very strong military society that's built up in the past some time. So these aren't like tents. These aren't like small buildings. These aren't like makeshift thrown up buildings. These are like very central to the region that you're in. They're beautiful. They're well designed, blah, blah, blah. When you actually make your way over to the command that's here, you can even see a couple of the apprentices that have been sent to the North. And you almost get that idea of your mind like, oh, this is cute. Their apprenticeship is in the North. How nice. You know what I mean? And you make your way past where they're doing like their training drills and whatnot, and into the area. So many of them looking over at you, and you can actually see that look in their eye as they see somebody who has the mark of a magister. Sorry, not a magister. My apologies. The mark of a magi with the mark of a venator, kind of walking past them. Something that you've grown used to a degree. When you walk into the place to meet with Magister Kayvon, she actually is happy to meet you. And says, because you guys have kind of like a friendly relationship. She knows of what service you had before you got here, and you actually got stationed here before she did. She's only been about a year or so. She welcomes you into the her office and says, what is it? Magi McLaughlin, please come in, have a seat.
Thank you. And he'll step in very, very stiff. He's, even though they have a friendly relationship, he's still very much at attention right now.
Absolutely. So because this is a magister, she does not have to be of the same branch as you do. She could be of any branch whatsoever, and she herself happens to be a magi. So a gish. She happens to be the that warrior mage class. She's a gish. So she invites you in and lets you have a seat. She has that easy, calm walk of somebody who is extremely keen, very aware of their surroundings, and knows usually more than other people suspect of them. Her blade's sitting easily at her side. When she goes over to her side of the desk, she happens to be one of those people that doesn't have a seat on her side. She prefers to do her work standing. So she offers for you to sit. I imagine you do so because it's a respectful thing to acquiesce, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But she stands on her side of the desk. And she's actually kind of short anyway. She's like maybe 5'1".
Okay. Yeah, so Oscar's about 6 feet tall, so he's seeing her pretty close to eye at this point, even though he's sitting. So, yeah.
She says, a parchment came by my desk last. Sorry, my apologies. A parchment came by my desk yesterday morning. It requested my referral of a soldier for a particular task. It's not one that I can make a decision on particularly lightly. It is one of significance. When I tell you more details, I'm sorry for being vague. You'll understand the gravity of what it is that I'm saying. Before I go any further, Oscar, remind me again why it is that you serve. Why it is that you chose to serve this life rather than just do your tour and go home. Why it is that every day I see you walking around this place, almost dying slowly on the inside. Talk to me.
Amulta suffers, so I'm willing to suffer for her. And I will serve. But I want to do more than just serve here. You know that. I want to fight. I want to hunt. I want to do my job. I want to do what I was trained to do. And I want to do it better than anyone else.
She nods. You can see she reaches over and grabs the parchment, and she pushes it over in front of her. It was clearly underneath like a couple of other like envelopes, whatever that are there. And when she moves it over in front of her, she's not positioning it, obviously not positioning it in a way for you to take it, but so that you can see it. Do me a favor. Roll me a intelligence check real quick.
All right.
The DC is kind of low because, of course, all your years serving. That's actually good enough.
Excellent.
With your total of 10, you're actually looking at the letter, the envelope specifically, and you recognize that this is the quality of parchment, the embossment, all that stuff there. This comes from the capital itself. This looks like something that was sent from the crown.
Oscar wouldn't say anything to that. He'd look at it, acknowledge it, kind of look at Kayvon and just the look is not, I don't know, it's almost expecting. The look is almost expecting as to like, okay, you have my attention now. What do you have to say exactly?
Whomever I choose to take this envelope from my hand, there's no going back. I need to know that I'm making the right decision. I've had a lead for some time. Unfortunately, I've had a lead for some time. I've sat on it because they didn't seem to be doing anything wrong. I don't mean to seem ignorant or like I don't care to watch my posts, but you know how it is up in the north. You don't want to stir too many pots because if you do, well, things get a little messy. There happens to be in town a baker. She's a very nice woman. She settled here from Galdaria. I don't think she's from Galdaria. We have reason to believe that she's a spy.
And
when was the last time you fought a mage?
I'm sorry to say it's been a few years. I'm not rusty, though, if that's what you're worried about.
I believe that she's a spy from Eustace. Or, let's be official here, from the Arcane Congress.
She gnomish?
No, at least not. Doesn't appear to be.
Right.
But there are things that are off. Things that are ever so slightly off. You've been to that bakery, right? The one just out of the main square. If you go by in the morning just after sunrise, it smells like cupcakes. That slight hint of that overly sweetened strawberry smell.
Yes.
Do me a favor. Go there. Tomorrow morning. Enjoy that smell. Look around. Tell me what you see. Tell me your instincts are. If you believe it time, act. If you believe not, come back and speak with me.
Oscar just nods and stands up. It will be done.
She nods and says, I will say that if you're successful in these tasks, if you take this job, I will miss having you around, Oscar. You are, well, at least good for a laugh over a beer.
Who knows? If I leave, maybe I'll come back. Just to visit, though.
She nods. Hopefully. But, yes. Not for too long.
Not for too long, no. Well, I'll let you know what I find.
She nods. You could, of course, leave from here. Now, it's midday right now when you kind of got this report to come in, and she told you to head there in the morning. What do you do for the rest of today? Like, kind of what is your character?
I think first of all, he'd go back home. First step is prepare gear, prep things for the morning. Nothing fancy, just his armor is good. He's been keeping that well maintained. But I think that over the last while, he's probably been using a sword more frequently, just for the nature of the beasts that he's fighting and the type of work that he's doing. It's more common for, their soldiers to use a bladed weapon. I think he pulls out the old spear and starts to prepare it a little bit more carefully, maintaining it, making sure that it's sturdy and set, that the head is ready to draw blood if needed.
I mean, you're no smith by any stretch. However, you are somebody that knows how to maintain your weapons well. There are oils and whatnot that can be used to help pierce through magical protections. There are all sorts of different abilities that can be used to help fight a foe if need be. Not to mention, you're a Maltese warrior. You had a tiny bit of magical training yourself. Granted, it's not what you leaned into. It's not something you ever had an interest in. But you're familiar with the best way to know your enemy, sort of a thing, right? Unfortunately, you don't have any of those oils and whatnot on hands. This is not something that she offered to you, that was commissioned out to you. She would have made notes if it was available. And you certainly don't have any supplies. They spoil if they're not used within a certain period of time. You do your training, your honing, so on and so forth. Maybe even spend some time either in your apartment. And actually, just to go over one quick little side note detail. Because you're of that middle rank there, the Magi rank, you actually have two options. One, you don't have to stay in like the camp of where the soldiers are. You can actually live off that camp, in which case you have, if you choose to stay in the camp, you actually have an individual room with one bunkmate, and that's it. So like you guys have your own beds, but share a room, usually kind of like opposite shifts, so you don't have to see each other too often, blah, 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 which is kind of nice. Or you can actually stay off and have your own apartment, which the military's pay covers pretty much the cost of that for you, pretty much the cost of food, that, and if you want alcohol and whatnot, that's a you thing,
Right.
So would you have like your own shitty little apartment or share like a decent military one?
I think he'd probably be on his own.
Yeah.
Just outside of the camp, and it's nothing against the bunkmates. It's more just the nature of his work. Even though he would be on different shifts, the work he does tends to draw him out at weird hours, and it's just not respectful to a bunkmate to be doing that kind of work. Really,
it's also, again, your branch of the military is one of the smaller branches, so it's very likely it's not somebody that really understands your branch as well, and it's annoying to say, but they have questions. You know what I mean? And again, not to go down that rabbit hole too far, but it's like, it's not that they're necessarily in awe, but they're definitely curious. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I applied for that. They didn't let me in. Why'd they let you in? That kind of a thing. All right, moving on. Anything else for the rest of the night, or would you just look to get a good night's sleep?
I think mostly it's just general preparation. He'll eat a good meal, he'll rest. He won't go out drinking, that's for sure. But yeah, just a regular night's sleep. He's not doing any necessary preparation because he's fully planning to do all of his investigative preparation in the morning. Because as far as he knows, that's what he's meant to be doing is just an initial investigative preparation. And if there's combat, then there's combat. But he's not going in with that as the primary focus. It is an expectation for a middling amount of investigation and a little bit of hope for there maybe being a fight. Yeah.
So you make your way to bed, sleep, so on and so forth. Making your way downtown. Shut up, chat. So you make your way to bed, get a good night's rest, so on and so forth. Probably get up a little bit earlier than usual in the morning. Double check your equipment, make sure everything's on the right way, polished. You want to look sharp if you're going to be using something sharp, right? And well, it's sunrise. It's dawn. You make your way to down by that part of town, and there's no getting around it. It is that overly sweetened strawberry smell. She just really loves that whatever strawberry treat she makes there that you don't know if you've ever actually ordered or eaten it. But, I mean, you've probably had her baked goods, but something like that,
He wouldn't eat sweets is the thing. Like, he's the type of person, he'll go there for bread, potentially, but he wouldn't be going there for anything treat-like.
Yeah. It's almost like one of those things where I like a good donut, real life. I like a good donut. But then there's those like gourmet donuts that have been popular for like 5 or whatever years now. And they're like obnoxious because they treat them like wedding cakes with just too much shit on them. And it's like, oh, this is clawing. Either cloying, like, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so anyways.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, for my knowledge in terms of magic in general, sickly sweet smells, do those tend to be something that is common with magical spells, with the use of functional magic?
It's a perfect question and something that you should answer with a roll. However, I did realize that if you have a focus, it's actually 2, not 1.
2, not 1.
Correct.
Okay.
So
I do have arcane lore.
Yep.
Which I will change to 2 there.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So let's roll that. 10.
But I believe you also... Oh, no, you got nothing else. Okay, cool. So you got a 10 total. It's one of those things where you know that there are certain spells that while they're being cast might carry a particular aroma, but lingering aroma or something like that, maybe not. She could just be somebody who's into strawberry sweets. Who knows? So nothing jumps out as you stop and you smell the air and you're like, it is attractively smelly. Like it is a nice smell, but not my style, you know?
Right.
And then where do you go from there? Do you make your way around? Do you go into the shop?
Don't go into the shop just yet. I'm kind of going to just do a sweep first and see, okay, how many people are around right now? Do people seem to be clamoring specifically to her shop, actually paying attention to what does the frequency look like? What does the foot traffic look like? Is there traffic in the front of the store or in the back of the store? You know, what does the surrounding area look like right now?
Roll me a perception, but this is a pretty simple DC for the basic information. Higher for obviously more.
Yeah. 11.
Cool. So with your 11 total, you can look around and see there's barely anybody that's up right now. Actually, predominantly the only people that you see up at this time of day is soldiers, kind of like moving from post to post, ending their what's it called? The shift, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Ending their shift, starting their shift, so on and so forth. There are a couple of other like merchants that are out there and kind of like setting up shop over in the mercantile area because you're so close to the Galdarian border that lots of merchants come through. And you can actually see like she literally goes over to the sign, and it's one of those things where she goes outside, leans out the door, flips the sign around, so it says open, and goes back in. And you can even see how she steps out. She does lean out, and because it is kind of a crisp morning, you know, it's like, you know, it just seems like a nice woman. To describe her,
overly delightful, huh?
Yeah, she's a very, very nice woman. So she's a human, which makes sense because even though there's a very mixed race to introduce you to Aurorum, it's a very mixed race here. I want to say the background race in Aurorum that kind of you almost don't think too much of is the Mull. Mull is the name of hobgoblins that exist in this. It's MUL Mull that exists in this world. The Mole are kind of in every nation and take up about 20% of the population in pretty much every nation, like a good background race. The other two predominant races are human and Perrin. Perrin is this world's name for half elves, right? Half elves mostly live inside their one nation, Paradel, which we already talked about, and the fact that they're warring and raging on. Galdaria is predominantly human. That's their biggest race, with the others mixed in there as well. There's very little racial tension aside from people fucking hating the Perrin because of Paradel, but it's usually like you don't hate you're like those fucking Perrin. Oh no, not you, those ones. The Paradel Perrin, not you, man. Because there's very little racial tension. It's more about national tension. Moving on. So she's human, and she stands at probably like a good 5'5", somewhere in that range. She has a bit of she looks like she's been tasting her sweets for some time,
sampling her own goods.
Exactly. What's kind of funny is she actually has, even though she's a little bit older, probably in like her late 30s, early 40s, her hair, even though it's like starting to gray, has almost this like pink hue to it in the light. Something that kind of like catches your eye. This isn't so unheard of. If you happen to be friendly with Hafue, which is this world's halflings, they might help you out with the kind of magic to add like a little streak of fun into your style. But so she has almost like a pink hue to her hair. Either way, she still looks in and she gives like a quick wave, not to you, but to like somebody else that's nearby that sees her and smiles back, and she shuts the door.
Okay. So I'm not going to go into the shop right away. I'm going to go around back first. Not to necessarily skulk around, but mostly just so I'm making a pass around the back, and then I'm going to loop around back to the front. So this is more meant to just get a feel for, okay, how many exits are there out of this building? Figuring out just details like that, just in case there's anything.
Roll me another perception check. Again, simple stuff is low, more stuff is high. Yeah. And as a reminder, that's fucking awesome. First time rolling stunt points. I'm going to talk at you while you look over the chart, and I'll explain that in a second too. Just as a reminder to you, sorry, when I do things, I usually have what I call tiered DCs. So like if you roll low, that doesn't necessarily mean failure, though it can. It means you get less than you otherwise would have if you roll insanely high, right? Cool. So stunt points are when you roll doubles, and the third die on the chart is your stunt die. Whatever number that is, when you roll doubles, that's how many stunt points you get. Stunt points are used to do cool extra features, whether they be combat or conversational or acrobatic or whatever it might be. He's looking at a chart of options, and these are the generic options. We can come up with our own as well. Things that he can spend his stunt points on. As an example, I think you can spend 3 stunt points for an additional attack. You know what I mean? Just to give you guys an idea. Sir, anything you want to spend those on, or let them slide?
So these would fall under exploration stunts.
Sure.
At this point in time, presumably. I think you probably could fit them under role playing as well, but role playing seems to be more interactive. Exploration with 4 stunt points, which is the most you can really spend on exploration, anyways.
I see the 4. Upper hand is awesome.
Upper hand is awesome if we're about to walk into combat. So I have a question for you. Does my perception lead to an initiative type combat here? If not, then I think resources at hand might be a reasonable choice here, which would be something under the perception focus, which I need to look at what the focuses are here.
I would say no, you don't believe. So that's if combat happens, then you would get a bonus, but you don't believe combat's necessarily going to happen, right?
Okay, cool. So I think that's very reasonable here. I'm just going to go to page 40 in the book because that's where the focuses are. Because I think that makes the most sense in this instance. Getting essentially just an increase in my perceiving ability in general right around now. Because that seems like it would be a valuable thing. So the focuses in perception are empathy, hearing, searching, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, and tracking.
Searching, empathy, and seeing all sound like the best ones based off of what you said for the generic focuses.
I think empathy is the one that he's going to go with.
Cool.
Here.
Cool.
Just because I think he's trying to discern a person at this point.
Awesome.
And realistically, within this, in terms of why I think that makes really what he's doing is he's looking around this area and trying to get a feel for this person, not just the environment in which she is, but also, okay, what what environment does she inhabit, and how does that make sense for her? Who is this person that I'm trying to study, if that makes sense?
Perfect sense. Actually, yeah, awesome. So, what you end up seeing when you're walking around the area is you're kind of like walking around, and you can see the design of this building. It's made out of set stone, so on and so forth. You can clearly see where the huge brick chimney is out back, where like it's brick that goes up the chimney, and the huge, like kind of like almost like molded clay stone kind of look down at the basin, like where it's fucking massive, right? Exactly, baker's oven. You can clearly tell what that is. There, you can see the clean out the backside that happens to exist there, the usual. But other than that, there's no back door that seems to be here. There's around side. There is a door that leads down to the basement, as you can imagine, where a lot of like their yeast and whatnot must need to be stored down there. There's no windows out back, and there's no windows on the side at all. All the windows are in the front, which are kind of like display windows and the like. And the only real door, other than the one that's down to the basement, is the door that's to the front. It's important to note that the door to the front, while being made out of like a heavier wood, does actually have a huge window pane, probably double paned, like one on the outside, one on the inside. That's inside there. Not modern double painting, but double painting. Yeah. But the door to the basement is a steel reinforced heavy wooden door. So it's definitely designed to not be easily broken into, of course, right? So you can definitely see that as you're walking around. But once again, you kind of just get a feel of the situation, kind of getting yourself into the mentality of reading her. Do me a favor as we're continuing talking. Under focuses, make sure you add into perception what we just described, which is empathy, so you can actually roll that in the future if you need to. All right. So you make your way back around front, I imagine, and there you are before the door, ready to walk in.
Yeah, and I will just walk in at this point. And just as a note, because I don't think we actually described him, Oscar is about a 6 foot tall human.
Actually, yeah, thank you. I like to do it right as you're doing like an important action. It was perfect timing. Thank you.
Great. So he's a 6 foot tall human male. He's cut. Is probably the best way to describe him. He's military, but he's kept himself in really good shape, and he's lean and muscular, but hardy in a way. Like there's a certain stance to him that is very impressive. He's an imposing figure to some extent. He comes in and he looks military. He looks very military, and it's very obvious that he is. And he's not trying to hide that in any way. He's wearing fairly heavy armor, all things considered. It's light scale mail, I think is what it is.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Yeah, so it's metal armor. It's not light.
It doesn't specifically say scale mail. You can choose whether mail, right?
I think realistically, I think it's probably scale mail.
Okay.
Given his stature and the type of thing that he's trying to do, he wants to have those closed off.
Yep.
It's safer when magic is trying to hit you. And I think he keeps it very polished and clean, and his appearance is very much in that way as well. Though he is scarred. Even in areas that are outside of his armor, it's very visible that he has scars that go deep below the armor, and they look almost like burn marks a lot of the time. Magical scoring, more like.
If somebody were to be capable of making such a high enough check to identify those marks, would they think it was the marks of actual fire or burning of like electricity? Because the way you kind of like move your hand makes me think jolting.
It's more along the lines of jolting, certainly.
Gotcha.
And electrical scoring, and there is some fire scoring too, depending on where you look. He's seen a lot of combat, and he's seen a lot of different types of magic thrown at him.
So if somebody seems to be a mage that focuses on like electricity or something like that, you would probably make you a little bit more wary of them because of past experiences, or are you tempered in mind enough to it's just another day?
Just another day.
Okay,
just
cool.
Another day.
Cool.
But it is something that he's cognizant of. I didn't feel good, but but it treats all mages the same. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
If they use magic for good, he has no problem with them. If they use their magic for, suppressing a Malta in any way, then then he's got a problem.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. So when you come walking into the shop, it's actually really cute because when you walk into the shop, some shops have that like little bell that goes ding when you walk in. Mm-hmm. It's actually, again, it just plays to her personality. She has like a little block that sticks at the back end of the door over by the hinge that actually brushes over wind chimes. So it's actually this cute little wind chimey kind of noise as you come walking in, which is, again, just very sweet. And so when you go walking into the shop, even though you hear the wind chimes, you don't see her immediately in front of you. You also don't see the the baker's hearth immediately in front of you. It's actually probably through like a back wall. And the reason why you would do that, just as you'd want to keep most of the heat back there so you're not melting the goods up front. So you walk in, you don't immediately see her, but you do see like the displays that she happens to have there. And again, this is very old school, kind of like, they actually did have the sliding back door to the glass display, but not the beautiful curved ones like we have nowadays. Certainly not refrigerated by any stretch of the imagination. But you can actually see all these delicious looking sweets in there. You probably have a moment or two before she comes back to the front door. What do you do?
Are there any cheese breads?
Roll me a very simple. No, you actually look around. You look around, and you actually do see there are in fact cheese breads. As a matter of fact, you walking by, it's kind of like if it's something that your character like leans towards. Yeah. You actually smell, and you look over. Ooh, there's a fresh cheesy focaccia. Focaccia, yeah, focaccia.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Focaccia, yeah, perfect. So he's going to note that as his reason for being here is the cheesy focaccia. Mm-hmm. That gives him his purpose for being here. That's great. He's got that. Other than that, he's going to just do a quick look around and just kind of get an idea for, okay, are there any exits from this room? What does this look like? Does it look like there's any secret passages, for instance? I doubt it. It's a storefront. That would be incredibly stupid. But just in case there is, doing a quick look around and really just monitoring his surroundings just in case there's danger, essentially.
So the inside of the shop is painted. And it's painted like with very pastel colors. The colors themselves are older, they're faded, so on and so forth. It doesn't look like she keeps it like super fresh and neat or whatever, but it's definitely like pastel blue, pastel yellow, pastel pink, stuff like that. Right. But specifically the back wall in front of you is this like faded pastel yellow, and she has almost like old saloon style swinging double doors, but you know, high enough that you at your height standing in front of them could see over them, but somebody shorter probably couldn't. That happened to be like this, like almost like a hot pink color. And so again, faded, chipped a little bit. But you can see that is the entrance to get through the other side. And it's that double hinge. So you can imagine she can walk out with big trays of shit, you know? Totally. So, and it's definitely a wide hinge door. You could walk a horse through it if you wanted to, you know?
Yeah, okay. All right. Good.
So she's through that door. That's the only other entrance, again, other than the big behind you to your left and right display windows. And you actually can kind of like look over there and glance, and you see that the cakes and whatnot she has there. You kind of like, you know, want to look for deception. Not all of these treats are real. Some of them are painted goods. You know?
Right. Which is pretty standard practice for a bakery because they've got to keep those things in the display case.
You lying bitch! Oh, sorry.
Nah.
You sit in a throat of lies. So go ahead.
This bun isn't cinnamon.
Nutmeg.
Nutmeg. What is this? No. So I think he's gonna just kind of, you know, take a look around, and he's just gonna wait patiently. He's gonna look very, very calm and composed at this point. And he's just gonna be eyeing that focaccia, but also like very much clearly like he's still paying attention to his surroundings. He's not. You know, he's not being complacent here, and it's mostly he's more than anything putting on the persona of his normal military self, as though he's just going about his regular duties, but also still being his usual stuck-up military self, where he is slightly too attentive, not wanting to get complacent, always on guard, you know.
Yeah.
General.
You don't have to roll anything for this because you're literally not doing anything strange other than walking into a shop and standing there. So eventually you see her coming out, and clearly she just opened the shop. We literally saw that a couple minutes ago, right? She comes walking out and she's holding a tray of. I mean, these are again treats because you don't necessarily have all the different options she has every day out there. She walks out with a tray of assorted bagels, and it's definitely one of those things where she's must have pulled 2 or 3 trays out of the oven at the same time because she has probably about 40 of them on the tray as she comes walking out. And so she walks out with these fresh bagels, and she comes out and she's kind of like backs through the door and turns around and she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the chimes as you walked in. Hello.
Hello?
We haven't met.
No, we haven't. My name's Oscar.
She starts walking over towards you, like greet you, and she walks up. She's like, "Oh, sorry," and like goes over, like walks to the side and puts down a thing and takes off like an oven, like a big, almost like a leather mitt or whatever she would have. And she comes like rushing, and it's like she has this like bounce and like jump to her. She comes around and around the counter to you, and she says, "Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name's Jessie." And she's like reaches out to take your hand.
Yeah, and I absolutely reach to take her hand. And
She doesn't stop there. She's one of
Okay.
those things. She takes your hand and like pulls you in for like a cute little hug.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So while she's doing that, I am just with the grip on the hand because I don't let go of that as she goes to hug me because I'm just an awkward military guy who doesn't do hugs, right? So I'm playing it off as like, oh, okay, sure. But I'm also feeling the hand to see, are there any scars or burn marks on her hands? Obviously, she's a baker. There's the potential for that, but I'm looking for more than just baking scars. I'm looking for natural outbursts of magic, things like that might have caused scars in the first place.
I get what you're saying. So I'm going to need two things from you then. One, I'm going to want a perception for what you're looking for. Follow that up by a communication for how well you're trying to be discreet with that.
Yeah, sure. So perception first. It's 9.
You
But
got
4 stunt points.
Stunt points. Oh, that's awesome.
Which okay. Okay, because this is a role playing moment.
Yeah.
So 4 points is interesting because 4 points may buffer my communication here because my communication is bad. But what I
Oh yeah, Tower of Will.
Tower of Will is interesting.
Oh, sorry. So you said something
But
else?
also, well, no. Tower of Will is the interesting thing. That's what I was going to say. Is this is going to be an opposed test in theory, so this will be a +1 bonus to that in theory. Impressing you are well. I mean, I don't know. Tower Will might not make sense there, but flirt might, interestingly enough.
Hey, you can do what you got to do, right? You got to get that job done.
Hold on, let's read this a little bit here. Choose one character who's present and immediately make an opposed communication, seduction versus willpower self-discipline test. If you win, that character becomes enamored with yours. Oh, I don't know about that. That's dangerous. Whatever. Screw it. Why not? Let's immediately make that seduction check.
Okay. I'm gonna need you to because obviously you're grabbing her hand and you're doing this as part of feeling the hand. So this is like a seductive search of her. I'm gonna need a slight description of that without getting too creepy, and we'll do the opposed roll.
Okay, so so this is just straight communication for me, which actually 8 is not terrible, all things considered. But that is +1,
Yep.
+1 to that, so it's 9. So the motion is very much just like a slight rub of his index finger over the inner part of her wrist as she went to grab. So similar to that, he would just kind of rub right there and then up the hand as he kind of pulls it away and runs his fingers over her hand, removes that to go more into the hug.
Gotcha. So you actually it's one of those awkward lean-ins, but then almost like you actually, you know what? You take the moment to enjoy
Embrace it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
All right.
Yeah.
So your communication to be a little discreet of what you're doing, which kind of is going to be hidden by the fact that you're about to make this other roll, which is communicate. Oh, that's the seduction one.
That's the seduction. I guess that's the seduction one.
All right, I get to roll my roll 3d6 plus
so
my.
It would be a 9, not an 8, and it's versus self-discipline, so willpower.
Yep.
Oh, she is not moved.
Okay, so I'm gonna need your other communication roll to disguise what you're doing.
Oh, terrible! Absolutely.
Oh, that's so much worse.
Yeah, so much worse.
So when you do that, you can kind of see that immediately. When you do that, you grab her hand. You're feeling around for the scars. Yeah. Let me be clear of what it is that you notice with the your perception that you had rolled beforehand, right? Yes. You actually do not see any scars that jump out as out of the ordinary. Typical burns. Now, I myself worked in restaurants for a long time. I've literally right here, I had a burn that was from an oven one time that literally lasted about 4.5 years to heal. It was 3.5 or 4.5 years to heal. That's just how it goes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I've had tons of them all over my hands. Plus, you nick yourself and stuff like that when you're working with the knife really quickly, and just it happens. So you notice you notice scars like that on her hand. You notice things. Actually, one of the things that kind of throws her off when you're doing your little flirtiness is you have to touch a new and tender ones. She pulls back a little bit and she looks at you. She's like, "Oh, hi.
Sorry.
You're friendly."
Sometimes. Sorry. New people, new faces, don't see them often.
Okay.
I'm interested in that focaccia.
She's yeah, I mentioned that for Kasha. She's like, she follows like the side of your finger, and she walks over. She's like, "Oh, of course!" And she makes her way over and goes to get the bread. And kind of like as she walks over, you can clearly tell that she's just with your empathy. I'm just going to give it to you. You can clearly tell she was a little bit thrown off by like what you did there, and she's just kind of like, you can literally see her mind going through that whole. No, you're just being crazy, and just kind of like try to brush it off and let's turn this conversation back around.
So,
right?
out of curiosity, with that, because throwing her off is actually a very good thing for me, realistically, because in theory, her normal behavior is very clearly quite delightful. It is, it is a persona. There is no way it's not to some extent. It's the question is to what extent is it? So, does it seem like she was thrown off to the point where it has completely knocked her off of her game, or is she still seeming quite delightful, but ultimately just taken aback?
The second, latter.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay,
Actually, yeah, I will say the latter off the nose, but you can roll me a communication or perception, empathy check to get a little bit more. Yeah.
Sure. Let's do that. That's a 15.
That was a beautiful roll. She's definitely exactly what I just described there. You really think it was genuinely just like taken aback for a moment, and she's just trying to be like, maybe I misunderstood that. Okay, maybe that wasn't what I thought it was. I'm sure it was fine. He didn't really mean to brush my inner thigh, did he? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So he's going to at this point kind of just stern up his demeanor at that, recognizing that she may just be second guessing herself and kind of try and get a feel for generally what she's here for in the first place. So I've been here quite a few years now. I'm surprised we haven't met yet.
She nods and says, well, soldiers, they come, they go, they often, the reason why I try to make everything so delicious smelling so early in the day is, I try to lure them in here, but, man, you Maltese soldiers, you do the best you can to both defend us and stay on a rigid regiment. Appreciated, but you could buy a couple of pastries every once in a while. Come on. Help a girl out!
I mean, if that focaccia is any good, I may be back more often. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that would just be delightful. As she's kind of going about and you make a little bit more small talk, do me a favor. Roll me a regular perception check.
Regular perception, you got it. That is 10 with 2 stunt points. So I guess, is this more exploration or role-playing?
This is more of exploration.
More exploration. Then in that case, let's see here. Neither of those are necessarily all that valuable. I mean, you know what? Actually, speedy search might be. So completing this test in half the time that it would otherwise take. So really just taking a very quick glance in, just in case there's any reactions that I need to take coming up.
Actually, you know what's funny is because you did speedy test, I will actually allow you to, if you want to maintain conversation, to continue like looking around. I would even allow you to do, because speedy is going to give you the opportunity to continue trying to be pleasant with a communications check to try another perception if you wanted to, or to try something else if you wanted to, because more or less instead of that conversation being like, okay, it's going to take pretty much all your time before things get a little bit awkward. It's like even before things get awkward, you can kind of cut it off to do either another action or more searching around. It's up to you.
So I guess the thing that he would lean towards there is trying to get a glance over into the back room to see if there's anything suspicious going on.
Sure. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So communication for that, and actually you don't even necessarily need to roll. You can role play. Go ahead.
Okay. So he kind of just walks over more towards the counter that's there, and he's kind of doing a quick glance down at the suites that are there. And as he's there, he's trying to line up so he's just directly across from that door. And he just does a quick glance up and over, and it gets himself close enough that he can see over that door, and just do a quick glance around and then back to looking at the suites, basically seeing if he'll see anything over the door.
Okay, with that one, I'll allow you to roll that other perception check quickly. Sure. Yeah.
15.
Jesus fuck! Oh my god! That is like
I can't do anything but with a flourish on this, which is just the manner of your success is impressive to those who are nearby who watch it. Just in general, it's just a +1 to oppose tests against me until the venue changes.
You can also advantageous positioning too.
Ooh, is advantageous positioning something I can do?
You can discover advantageous positioning. Your choice up to 2 yards away from the place that would normally lead you to discover respect. Oh, cool. So more or less, you can see more than you otherwise would have because of your positioning and everything. So it's one of those things where as she's like walking by and she's like, "Oh, jeez, I forgot my knife. 1 second," and she like walks out back of the door, swings. So one of the things that you notice when you go walking in there, and again, you just with a flourish gives you just a +1, right? So fucking 16, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So 16 and +1 moving forward. So one of the things that you notice when you look out back is that everything back there seems to be a little bit shorter than you would expect. Like, she's clearly, like I said, a 5'5" woman. But everything out back seems to be set for somebody that's shorter than 5'5" for the basics of comfort. Again, if you've ever worked in a kitchen or even gotten the difference between cutting vegetables on a counter versus on a table, it's a little too short, it like hurts your back. It's like that kind of difference.
I worked in a pizza kitchen for a while.
You know exactly what I'm talking
I
about.
had to duck my head under the counter because I am a
Oh, that's right.
man.
I keep forgetting. You're freakish. So what's comfortable for me hurts your back.
Yeah,
so you know exactly
absolutely.
what I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're in a Sicilian kitchen. It's meant for little people.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
Right, Josh?
Oh, good. Do I know of any arcane magics that can disguise an individual?
Absolutely, but roll me an arcane lore check.
Sure.
Oh my!
19 with 4 stunt points.
Jesus Christ!
So, what would that fall under for stunt points? That's
actually this is exploration as well because you're in information with a flourish.
With a flourish, it's a +1 bonus to opposed tests, so that's not.
Okay, you know what resources at hand works as well.
At hand.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So
Or even upper. Okay, so let's continue on. So you know for a fact there are lots of very simple magics that allow you to very, very, very easily disguise who you are, but most of those are illusions, and illusions are mostly seen through with interactions with them.
And we hugged.
Not completely, but that was a pretty intimate interaction. However, there are transmutations as well. Alteration magic is actually what the Arcane Congress calls it, and you know that would be beguiling, even allowed to hide scarring and whatnot. But alteration magics aren't usually permanent. They're usually something that has to be kind of seen through from time to time. It's very possible she's altered herself.
Okay.
And my apologies, just so you know, even though that is technically a higher tier of magic than illusion, it's not so much higher. Like it's not crazy.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And just with my general perception of that room and the height, does the height appear to be of a gnomish stature?
Maybe a little tall for a gnome, but definitely shorter than her.
Perhaps halfling in height?
Maybe.
Potentially.
Halfling called a hafue. Halfling is actually a racist term.
Fair enough. Sorry. Halfway?
Hafue. But if you say halfling, I'm just it's out of game. Is it?
Fair enough. Yeah. It's a habit. Honestly.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it might be halfway height, but not necessarily gnomish. A little tall for gnomish.
Correct.
Okay. With that information, I'm gonna just purchase the focaccia and leave. That's not necessarily enough for me to act on anything in this moment.
Sure. Now, do you say anything else or do anything else before you leave, or you just?
I just say, essentially, thank you for the bread, and I'll be back very soon if it's good. And well, if it's not, I'll probably still be back soon. Some of this stuff smells absolutely delicious.
Okay. So you make your way out, and then where do you go?
I go home first. I drop the bread off, and then I go and speak with Kavan.
Okay.
Directly and report my findings.
So when Magister Kavan welcomes you in, and it's one of those things where she was waiting for you, so there's no waiting for it, there's anything like that. It's literally, it's as you approach, because she has, of course, an undersecretary or whatever it is that takes care of some stuff. Say, oh, she's been waiting for you. Please come right in. She welcomes you in and says, oh, please, Magi Oscar, please have a seat. And then she goes over to her standing desk.
So, findings. Wasn't time to act. Say that. There was nothing that indicated that I needed to act right in this moment, and I think it would be better done with preparation. However, there is some aspects that are suspicious, without a doubt. The back room of the bakery is set for someone much shorter than a 5'5" woman. And she is extremely cheery. She also has some indications towards her appearance that would tend towards some halfway tendencies in terms of the streak in her hair. Doesn't necessarily say anything, but the back room being set for approximately someone of that height is very interesting. Also noting that there is such alteration magics, as the Congress would call it, that could alter someone's self. I wasn't able to get any physical discernings of magic usage necessarily, but she's a well-hidden woman, and I have my suspicions, but nothing solid. Not at this time.
I do apologize, Oscar, for this was a ruse. She purchased the shop she purchased the shop about 15 years ago from a retiring Hafue family that had the shop prior. Her family was friendly with theirs sometime in Galdaria long beforehand, which is why they made her an offer and sold it well underneath its value, and she's been running it ever since. She's a very pleasant woman and is in fact human. She has absolutely no ties to the Arcane Congress whatsoever. I wanted to know what you would discover and how you would act upon the information, but most importantly, how you came across that information. Your connection of the height and the alterations of her physical appearance was certainly something. Another way you could have gone about it was to look into the history of how long she's been in the shop and who the previous owners were. There is a public record to a degree of that, or even just hearsay by the locals. I understand your persona, and so I understand why you went about it the way you did, directly, as opposed to gathering the other information. I want you to be mindful of this in the future. Sometimes gathering the other information before you're walking in can behoove you. But most importantly, the reason why this ruse was here was to make sure that the itchiness of being stuck inside the miserable north hasn't made you rash in your decisions. That's what we need. That's what the crown is asking for. Please, take this envelope.
He'll stand at that and nod and pick up the envelope. Are you expecting me to read this here, or should I be taking this away?
I think you should read it here because, well, please, go ahead.
He immediately opens it at that and reads through.
It is a letter written directly from, if not by the hand of, but by the right-hand person of the crown, by the queen herself. It is saying that they are looking, that the queen is moving into, sorry, I didn't actually write something out, my apologies. She is calling to action a certain individual who is training in the Venator branch of the military, who has showed through time and experience, through past activities, that they are somebody who is capable of handling a task that is dire to the success of the crown and of the nation moving forward. That this task would include the responsibility of standing beside and watching over a former member of the Arcane Congress who has turned on the Arcane Congress and has joined the Maltese government, who is coming here seeking asylum and to aid the crown. They are looking for an individual who is both capable in their ability to handle such mages, but also in their judgment, their ability to show staying of the hand when others might otherwise make rash actions. Part of accepting this responsibility will take you not just out of the north, but potentially out of Malta itself from time to time, and certainly throughout the different regions therein. But also part of accepting this responsibility, and it is your choice to choose to accept this responsibility, is to accept with it a promotion of rank.
He'll put the letter down on the desk at that point and kind of scratch his nose, and then stand upright and look at Kavan and just say, "What if I had just slaughtered her?"
She nods, looks down, looks up and says, "The judgment call of the actions of the situation that you were put into certainly is not anything that the Queen would ever have requested. That was mine. I know what kind of man you are, but I needed to push you to the edge. because I don't know what kind of man or woman that you'll be spending your time with. A former member of the Arcane Congress turned to us? Do you believe this shit?
No. But I am curious.
I am very disappointed with my own choice to do things the way that I did. We're in a desperate time. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I think that you're the right person for this job, and so I put you in that situation. I'm glad that you proved successful there for not only the sake of you and her, but also for the sake of my own soul.
What do you know about her focaccia bread? Is it any good? Or did I just waste a few silver pieces?
I shop at that shop every morning.
Okay. Well, good. I've got something to look forward to before I pack up, I suppose, then.
She nods. You can see there's like welling in her eyes, but like stealing of her face. She's holding the soldier facade, but it's killing her on the inside that she put you through what she just did. And you're calling her out for it is killing her equally as much. You can see this personal judgment going on.
Oscar walks over and he actually stands up and walks around the side of the desk. Not something he would normally do in this situation. And just walks over to her and grabs her hand and says, "Thank you for the opportunity. I needed to know I could trust myself as well."
She nods. Thank you for succeeding. She reaches down and grabs another envelope and hands it to you. And congratulations. This promotion comes from me. And it's the last one that someone of my rank could even hope to give to someone of yours.
He nods and bows slightly and says, "Thank you. I accept."
Before you leave this region, make sure you stop by the commissary and get your new equipment, Master.
I'm going to be making that mistake for a while, I think. And before I go, just make sure we grab a drink.
She nods, appreciating the sentiment, and says, "Unfortunately, I don't think there's time. The measurements have already been taken from your previous records, and you don't seem to have changed physique at all. Not like some of the other soldiers here."
Yes, well, okay.
Your armor's waiting for you, as is the caravan. You'll be leaving tonight.
Fair enough. Then in that case, it was an honor serving with you.
The honor is all mine, and I really hope that we do get to see each other again.
Likewise.
And with that, we bring our little solo intro session to a close. I really love, just for a second there, your judgmental, stern approach to her at the ends there. I just want you to understand that it really means a lot to me as Dungeon Master and as the writer of this world that you took that approach, because that is not the Maltese way of handling things. And to throw that in her face gave me the opportunity to show her humanity and how she hated herself for going, because that's too far in the eyes. If the crown found out about that, she could potentially be demoted, if not punished, beyond demotion for such a thing. She put in jeopardy not only the life of an innocent person, but somebody who came to our country to seek asylum, to seek a new life, so on and so forth. That is a horrible thing to do.
Yeah. And the thing is, Oscar knows he's a dangerous man, so he wasn't going to let that slide, because if he had gone through with that, and if he had made a mistake, which he's been in the North for years, and his biggest fear right now is complacency. So if he had goofed and made a judgment call that wasn't right.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want you to respond to this because I want you to keep your own ideals to yourself, but my judgment of that immediate watching how this whole entire thing played out is, if we're putting this in D&D terms, which we're not playing, we're playing Fantasy Age, I see your character as being lawful, neutral, despising of evil, but not necessarily good. Like willing to make bad decisions if need be. Again, you don't have to. I want you to keep your character to yourself because we're going to see it play out. But I very much see them as this character that does not like evil. However, is not necessarily good because they're willing to do what they need to for the sake of law. But again, so Anything
I
else
think
that you?
based on today's session, I will agree with you
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And
And
we'll
again,
see how that plays out over time.
it's like, bitch, please, I'm a slatterer. Like, give me the children.
Yeah, meet Anakin Skywalker,
Yeah, yeah.
the character of your dreams.
All right. So, anyways, anything else that you want to say in departure? Anything about your character or you or what you've been up to lately? Your channel, if you're still using it, and all that fun stuff. Please, sir.
Yeah, so Oscar's going to be a very interesting character. Let's start there because that's what people are here for in the first place is the characters and the story. And Oscar's going to be a fun time because I've wanted him to be someone who is very principled, but in a very unique kind of way. And so I think that's going to really come out over the course of the sessions. And I mean, I think I as you say, the opportunity to call her out was the first opportunity I had to show his principles, really. And I'm excited to kind of explore that a little bit more and play around with this character as a very stern figure, especially meeting with some of the characters that he's going to be hanging out with over the next little while. I think it'll be a very interesting dynamic, which we'll see what those are like. But yeah, so Oscar's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to playing him. And the system is going to be super interesting for it. I'm excited for level ups with this because I think expansion for this, it gets really cool over the next little while. So that'll be very fun. As for me, you can find me pretty much everywhere at WillNGraham. That's just my name, really. I've been streaming, playing video games. Currently have a For the King session going with both Matt and Tib, which is fun time. I'm over on Ollie's channel on Sundays for right now Star Wars, but it will be D&D coming up again soon. We're just doing kind of a short interlude Star Wars series, which is a ton of fun. Where I'm playing a smuggler pilot. You can tell I tend towards the smugglers in Edge of the Empire. But that's a pretty fun time. I'm also working on a project that I'm going to be doing an announcement on soon, so I can't actually talk about it too much right now.
Maybe even the first session. You'll be able to have it ready.
Might be able to have that. So the announcement's coming out really soon, which is very exciting. But it's a creative project that I'm working on with a couple of people, where we are building something real and material. I'll just say that. And I'm very excited for that. I've been working hard on doing all of the business side of those things, so I'm really excited to see that come.
Silicon molds of your cock. Awesome. So
right, precisely. So spoilers. I will say there is something to do with molds.
Oh, we could call it Little Willie.
We could call it Little Willie. There you go. Problem solved. Company names.
Oh, sorry.
Good. No, but so there is some cool stuff coming down the pipeline. So I'm really excited for that, and I will have announcements over the course of the series in all likelihood, which is very cool.
Beautiful, awesome. Well, everybody, obviously, I don't know if this is gonna be first, middle, or last. So if it's not the last one, stick around. You're gonna get another one in a moment, and I'm just excited to have this recording done. I technically have one more to record, and then I got to figure out which way they're gonna go in. So awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much for all the support you always do, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.